I'll just jump into my story because that's what I can share. I have my experience. I would love to be a doctor, but I just have the research from what I read when I was sick. And so it was traumatic, but I try to take a positive view, and I really did learn and grow through the process. And having little taglines like this helped me, like C. diff helped me see differently. So that's why you have that there. And so this is a jumble of a slide just to represent what my life was like before C. diff. And so, I mean, the biggest part there, you see a bunch of music, and it's a little bit disorganized, and then on the left, some kind of spreadsheets and writing. So that's my work and my personal life. And I come from a large family. I have 8 siblings. I loved to swim, exercise, cooking, all sorts of things like that. I just have a cookie up there because sugar was that was kind of my comfort food. Any sort of sugars or things, I would kind of go to that. And so I hope that gives a good picture. The wheelchair there is for my darling siblings. Those are the first words that came to mind. 2 of them are disabled. I guess there may be better words for that now, but they're the closest people in the world to me still. And it was really hard while I was sick because I could not visit them in their care home. So how did C. diff enter my life? This is just part of the picture, but like with all the busyness of life, I was not sleeping very much. I was stressed out, qualifying as a CPA in Canada, working for the big firms. And then, at night I'd go home and I'd be so stressed. I'm like, I need to do some music or something to relax. And I just wasn't sleeping. And mental health, like I just didn't know how to cope with a lot of things. So I had a lot of stress and worry, and that's just not good for health overall. So I had a weakened immune system. And before getting to what's on this slide here, I had different ills. I was getting sinus infections, earaches, and athlete's foot, all sorts of little things that I would treat with sprays and sometimes pills, like antibiotic pills and creams. So my immune system was definitely weak. So that's part of my story. And so during that time in 2019, only reflecting back after the fact, I'm like, well, where could I have possibly picked up C. diff? And it might have been going to the hospital to visit a family friend. This isn't a picture of them. This is some sort of stock image. But they were gowned up. They were suffering from cancer. And so we just gowned up. And I felt kind of in myself, maybe it's not a good idea to visit. Like, I'm not feeling well. Maybe I shouldn't go. But I just went anyway. And that's possibly, like, we're suspecting that he probably had C. diff, and that's why he was quarantined and we had to gown up. So maybe that's where I came in contact with it, but it's really hard to say. But I didn't get sick then. It wasn't until a few months later. I had a routine, like a wisdom tooth extraction and clindamycin. And so after the kind of past year of several antibiotics and then finally clindamycin, I became sick with C. diff within about 2 weeks. And so kind of going back to that time, again, I'm kind of depleted and tired. And then I started to notice some blood in my stool. So this is not me, some sort of stock image, but it very well represents, I'm looking at some toilet paper in my hand. I'm like, what is going on? Like, what is this? Do I have dry skin? What's happening? I know I'm on this antibiotic. My stomach is not feeling great. I have some diarrhea. So I went to Google clindamycin and my symptoms, and pretty quickly found C. diff is a possibility. Went to my doctor. He gave me the test. And sure enough, here's the actual screenshot or like a scan, and detected the first line, and then detected the toxin. So I was diagnosed with a severe C. difficile infection. So I'm just going to jump ahead here. And I was treated with vancomycin, which was a little scary for me because in talking to some nurses on like a provincial telehealth line, they said vancomycin is a very strong drug and it basically kills everything. But I do think that vancomycin killed the C. diff because I never tested positive again. Just because I didn't test positive doesn't mean I was feeling well. And I think a lot of people can relate to this that have had C. diff or have C. diff. I was testing negative, but I still had pretty much the same symptoms. For me, it was kind of bloating in my stomach. I could feel the pain, and I don't know if I can stand up, but like I could feel the pain moving along my colon, which I didn't really know where it was till I was learning about all this. And as the days went on, the pain, I was getting more and more scared. I'm like, what's going to happen when the pain reaches my butthole, if I can say that? I was like, am I going to die? What's going to happen? I was super afraid. And this was after my treatment. I'm like, I thought I was treated. Why is there still pain? What's happening? So I went to the ER and they tested my blood work. It was fine. They did do a stool sample and it came back as inconclusive. I guess it was held for a couple of days and didn't make it to the lab quickly, but it was negative. So I'm like, well, what's happening? So I can totally relate to that. And so this led to my darkest night. You know, a couple of days later, I was like, I went to the ER. They couldn't help me. I don't know what's wrong. And I'm like, am I going to make it through the night? Like, I felt so horrible. But I just kind of trusted that whatever was going to happen to me, it was going to be okay. Whether I made it, whether I didn't make it, I kind of had to face all of my fears. And so there's kind of a picture of me at that time, pretty skinny. I don't know. I took this literally because I'm like, I want people to see what I was like before when I wasn't feeling well. And like, because this is kind of where I felt I started to recover. So somehow I fell asleep that night and I started to get better the next day. I'm not really following my notes here. But like this kind of jumps ahead to, like you can see on the left, I'm pretty skinny. But I felt very at peace at that time because I'm like, you know, I'm going to do the things that I can do. For me, that was changing my diet. That was a lot of cleaning. Like that was a hard work for me. I was exhausted and living by myself. But I felt like, you know what, I'm doing what I can. The types of things for cleaning that I was doing was like bleaching high touch surfaces. I asked my landlord, can I bleach my floors, please? She said no. So I just used something else. So in my experience, like I'm probably a little anal about a lot of things. And maybe like with good reason when you have C. diff, but I had to find my balance of like, how much can I do to clean? And where do I just say, you know what, I've done what I can. I'm just going to try to go to bed or whatever it is. I also mentioned diet as part of my recovery. And so one thing I did when finishing vancomycin and still feeling bad, I was sitting in a restaurant next to my doctor's office eating some greasy chicken and potatoes. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I'm just thinking to myself, I don't think I'm going to be eating out for a long time after this because I still don't feel well. And so, but what I did do was kind of research what is going to help me. And so for me, I fought the diarrhea, number one. For me, I just found sweet potatoes, baked sweet potatoes helped. They kind of were smooth on my colon. Oat bran is a soluble fiber, so that would help kind of keep me hydrated, but wasn't rough, like apple peels, like if you have an apple, or salads. I couldn't eat salads. They just bothered me so much. Or beans, like black beans have a lot of fiber that weren't great for me. But like the oat bran, the cooked oat bran, sweet potatoes, and plain kefir was kind of my go-to, my comfort. Like some people say they have a brat diet and that helps them. I personally I call it the Spock diet, the rich brat, sweet potatoes, oat bran, and kefir is what I was doing. Plus whatever nutrition I could get. I could handle cooked spinach, so I did that. I could handle eggs, so I could, but I was 135 pounds at 6 feet tall, so I could talk for ages. So I'm going to try to jump ahead here and just talk about the emotional impact, which I touched on, kind of the darkest night I had there. Also the fear of cleaning, the fear of going out is real. I'm sure it's been mentioned, but I was scared to visit family. I was still working initially. My doctor said, as long as you don't have diarrhea, you can go to work. So I was doing that. But everything kind of came crashing down on me. I was sitting at my desk working on a file for the 8th time, and I could not think. I could not get anything through my head. I was exhausted. I was sick. I'm like, I'm done. And I actually went on a year-long sick leave with the C. diff, but that kind of resolved a little quicker. And then with my concurrent mental health issues, anxiety and depression. So in that time, I moved to a small town to recover. So the picture on the left is my old apartment. The picture on the right is somewhere in my like the newer place that I was living, just a basement in a small town that I loved. When I was in school, I'm like, I'm going to do something for me. I'm going to get better. And I did. So I'm so thankful for that. And I can't thank myself for it. I'm just thankful for however it happened, like all the people that were helping along the way, the doctors and dietitians. 2 more things I will just mention. So I mentioned vancomycin treatment. I mentioned diet. Many C. diff patients hear about FMT, and that was my story. I had the kit at home. I found out how can I do it because I didn't qualify. I was testing negative, first of all. Second of all, it wasn't a recurrence, so there was no way for me to get it. I found out how. I even asked a friend, I'm like, hey, listen, if I need to, would you be willing to, poop in a bucket, poop in something for me? I didn't say it in those words, but I had somebody lined up and I said, I would, you need to be screened and tested. I know there's research going on about that, but that kind of drove me. I'm like, if I don't get better, I have this backup. It made me feel good. And in the meantime, I did the diet thing. I tried to get my sleep in order. That's something unique to me. Some people mention that, like, I did take a sleeping pill for about a month because I'm like, I need to sleep. If I'm going to get better, I need to recover, and that's going to help me. So I needed that. And it was really hard to get off the sleeping pill. But after a terrible night of no sleep, I was okay. So that was the first thing I was going to mention there, just that the FMT was kind of a backstop for me. And finally, advocacy and awareness, like where am I at in that space? And it was really interesting hearing from Christian this past week in a meeting that, like, this is an infection. Sometimes when people get better, they just kind of move on. Whereas with a chronic condition that people will live with for a long time, it's easier to find people that are advocating and supporting. I think it'd be really easy for me to just move on, but it would also be really easy for me to dip back into kind of unhealthy habits, and I don't want to do that. So that's part of why I'm trying to share my story. I guess I'm also upset the more stories that I hear about people that get sick from antibiotics. It bothers me, like get C. difficile from antibiotics that maybe they didn't need to take. So I encourage people to be prudent with their antibiotic use, to just think about it have the discussion with their doctors about what's necessary. And so that, I would say that's the other reason that I'm doing this. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. I hope it's been helpful. And thank you again for all the presenters, and especially with Peggy Lillis. Christian, it was great to hear from you a little bit last week, where you're coming from. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Karl. I don't know if folks have any questions for you. You're getting a lot of compliments in the chat. You know, we do really appreciate you and Trish and Caitlin, you know, being very vulnerable. I think, you know, my my experience of C. diff was that it happened to somebody I loved and took them from me, and you know, that's still hard to talk about at times. But I think it's also just very brave to be this vulnerable. And I think as you're seeing other people's stories, people are seeing your story, and you know, we get more and more people who kind of want to get involved, and also, you know, I think it's important to share. Not everybody's going to have the same experience, you know, and maybe somebody will see themselves in your story that didn't see themselves in Caitlin's story, you know. So I think, you know, this has been really wonderful. We're really glad to have you as part of the team, part of the extended Peggy Lillis family. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Great. Thank you so much.